Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to Taiwanese shipping tycoon Nobu Su. Welcome to the Keiser Report.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, now, Nobu, you are suing RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, which is 73% owned by the British public, for approximately, how much are you suing them for? How much?
Close to $1 billion.
Close to $1 billion. And you're spending about $50 million on the lawsuit. Now, what's fantastic is you are a very successful businessman, and you're caught up in the RBS scandal, just like folks like Neil Mitchell have been caught up, just like the victims of GRG. RBS has their own pet subsidiary where they strip companies. They sell them for pennies on the dollars. They're acting as incredible bad actors in this global scandal. And you're doing this amazing research. And some of the books you are researching, you see Henry Paulson, Ben Bernanke, Timothy Geithner, there's Shredded, the book by Ian Fraser has been on our show. All these things are putting together this massive lawsuit. And not only that, but you've got some actual items which I would consider to be smoking guns. Here's a document that shows from RBS an $8.5 billion misstatement of funds, not 85 million, but 8.5 billion as part of a concerted, what would appear to be a concerted effort to move funds illegally, misappropriate funds. This is a document from the company. You've got the smoking gun. Here they're doing it with 3.6 billion. Here's a document from JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon where they're falsifying SWIFT codes.
Yes.
You've got the goods on these companies. You potentially could be the guy to help us get rid of these terrorists, the true bad actors in the global economy. But let's get into some of the details here, Nobu. A lot of it centers around swaps and the swap business. And in your industry, the shipping business, like many industries, it's been transformed by financialization. And what used to be done between companies,
OTC,
over the counter,
correct,
is now done through products, financialized products of doing swapping.
Correct.
And can you speak a little bit about how this works and go into that a bit?
They are no different from the LIBOR and other swaps. It's a financial product created based on paper so that the financial banks could utilize it to make the money from the system. Yes.
Right. So like we've seen, as you point out, with LIBOR or Forex, once again, it's a market that was functioning great, the shipping business, been financialized, bankers get involved, and they engage in multi-billion-dollar fraud schemes, and your company's basically been destroyed.
Yes, sir.
And the shipping business is the main avenue for commerce in the globe.
Yes, we are basic for the global commodities, iron ore, oil, and we carrying the goods, so we know what happened in the service industries. That's our business.
So part of the global economy slowing down right now and having so much trouble is because here you're in the shipping industry and your business has been destroyed. So these companies, when an RBS attacks a company like yours in a multi-billion-dollar, what looks to be a fraud, this also hurts the global economy, right?
Yes, I'm from Asia. We believe the Western banks always the honest and the good banking system. Actually, after I heard this Bob Diamond, the LIBOR, and also latest all the scandal in New York and London, I came to conclusion that it impacted the whole world because all this money they printed never enter in the real economy. That's why today we see the very bad economy for everybody, and we don't know what is real reason why economy is bad.
So this is, again, RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, is 73% owned by the British taxpayer. And it's in their name that these alleged frauds are ripping apart the global economy, destroying businessmen. It's interesting that you also have here in your research, this is the Financial Crisis Inquiry Report. This is the
U.S. government.
U.S. government.
Yes.
And you've done a lot of research, and I see that on page 377, payments to the AIG counterparties page.
Yes.
It adds up to $8.5 billion essentially, which would then account for what you've discovered was what would allegedly be a complete and utter bogus, fraudulent misappropriation of funds from your account.
Yes, sir. It was very interesting. I found out 1 month before the RBS bankers they bombarded my office and demanded 85 million rand figures, and I asked them why. But they said if I don't pay now, they'll destroy my companies. So I had to offer them some pledge. But what we found out was they cooked the 2 documents, let me sign, and created my company shares, and they value it to 85 million shares. And from the internal computer on that paper, we realized it's for 80.5 billion. I believe this 8.5 billion was for the AIG rescue for 85 billion round figures of 10%. I believe my account was, and my balance sheet was used for the CDS to help the
credit default swaps.
Correct, credit default swap for the until the 13.3 section to be approved by the New York Fed. It has to be guaranteed the risk for the JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs, excuse me, for the short-term funding.
Okay, a lot of people have heard the phrase essentially the black market in securities, the invisible market, the global multi-trillion-dollar pools of capital that are completely unregulated. And here you have, through your research, a great insight into what is clearly racketeering. As we've said on this show many times, RBS, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Barclays, HSBC, Lloyds, are engaged in what would appear to be a clear case of racketeering. And what you've discovered is that during that 2008 crisis, it's a way to recapitalize the global system is through this racketeering, correct?
Yes, sir, it's more than that. My case seems to me like playing golf. I was a scorecard, and they create the handicaps, and I don't know what handicap they applied to me, but at the end, scorecard had long yardage and long par and long pinpoints. So I think my case is very interesting because it happened chronologically at the major events, and my account was major. It simultaneously kept the altered or the manipulated and misrepresented my positions. They forced me to not be able to do any economic activities.
Have you ever given any money to Hillary Clinton's election campaigns?
No.
No? Well, there's your answer.
Oh, really?
There's your answer. In other words, in America and in the UK, it's pay for play. You give politicians money, and they won't target you in the way you've been targeted. Your problem was that you were an honest businessman. And in today's world, if you're an honest businessman, you get targeted for death, marked for death. And here, they've destroyed your company. They misappropriated billions to feather their own nest. And in the UK, taxpayer owns 73% of this viper's nest. And of course, the BBC would never go into details reporting this because they're still wading through all the Jimmy Savile kitty rape scandals that affected all of their entire operations for years, completely unreported on because, remember, they're impartial. So let's talk a little bit about iron ore prices because not only you have a unique insight, Nobu, because you are a shipping tycoon and the shipping business is the glue that holds the global world together. This is a clear case in the swaps business of fraud. They're using financialization of fraud, of swapping to create fraud. But you think that you've observed now, this type of manipulation extends into other areas like iron ore, et cetera? Can you talk about it?
Oh, yes. I look at 2008 as an execution to rescue the banks and the global financing system. It was started planned since 2006. So in order to create and close the Rubicon River of the moral hazard, they clearly manipulated in Q2 2008, not only in iron ore, but in oil prices, so that everybody say that, oh, this is the end of life. So the only way is to print the money and rescue the people. So that's why we today have the issue of the moral hazard, and today we have the issue of the actually who is going to benefit it, how this money has been circulated, especially through the New York Fed, because I think New York Fed has a lot of issues, and many people have to understand what really happened on their taxpayers' money.
I think anyone who reads the financial press or sites like Zero Hedge it would see this phrase, New York Fed, repeated quite often. It's where, it's unlike the Fed in Washington, D.C., under the auspices and direction
I was very shocked to understand this the American greenback system. And Washington, D.C. is basically monetary policy, but if the interest rate kept for 6%, there's no monetary policies. So the most important location was 33 Trinity Church, 85 Broad Street, and 22 Wall Street.
That's the New York Fed.
Yeah, in such a small walking distances, all this has happened. So there are no need to have any emails or the SMS during these three small areas.
It's like the old days. I mean, I worked on Wall Street back in the 1980s, and there were still some vestiges of the old school where people met in coffee shops or on the street corner and did deals face to face. So you're suggesting that the old boy network between the New York Fed and JP Morgan, let's say, and these other banks is...
I understand it was to rescue the world system, so they have to. It's like a kind of war for them. So that I understand what they have to do, but I trust them, and I start believe that I was used as the kind of the stepstone for the world to be survived.
Right. So a lot of there's also a story. I don't know if you've read the story, but we've covered it on our show. In the case of the complete lack of cash available for the system, there was actually use of the cash from the Mexican drug cartels that was being supervised and enabled by HSBC, Wachovia, and other banks. Actually, when there was no actual physical cash, they were tapping into the drug money. So there seems to be no endpoint to the depravity of banksters. What kind of, I mean, we have a problem in the globalized world today. Financial terrorists, more than ISIS or Al-Qaeda or anyone, are the problem. Have you given any thought to what can be done to rip them out of the system finally and absolutely?
I think that we are now, as I said, this internet and everybody has a mobile phone, iPhone, etc. We just need to timestamp what they're doing. So each time they click the documents, we put a timestamp so we make sure they don't change any figures. And secondly...
This sounds like the blockchain technology.
Yeah, you just timestamp it, and we just say that anybody timestamps so that they cannot change any figures, and it's much simpler. And a lot of legal documents, also lawyers change the figures, so it should not be changed.
I know when I was working on Wall Street, we did something called a look-back trade with the options desk, which abused the timestamp principle in terms of putting trades in different accounts. And you're absolutely right, if everything was actually timestamped. So, but to do that would mean you'd have real accountability.
Basically, we need to change the regulation more simpler. And I also think about the accounting was fraud in those since 2006 for IFRS accounting called mark-to-market accounting, so they could change the figures whatever they wanted.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yes,
we'll get into that. The mark-to-market accounting, all that stuff is great stuff, but we're out of time. Nobu, thanks for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Nobu Su. You can follow his ongoing case with RBS in Singapore on the web. If you'd like to get in touch with us, tweet us at Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.